Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and all of you out there in the greater uh, tabletop role playing game community are the co hosts on this channel that make this channel great. So, today, on this Future Friday, because we've been talking about the industry, I thought we'd be a little bit more positive, and a little bit of wish fulfillment. I think would be a great thing to end the week. And let's talk about the future of tabletop role playing games. Let's talk about some of the things we wish for, and hopefully I'll be able to corral a number of the themes we will talk about because while the greater community has been talking about like it, because of Dungeons and Dragons announcement in terms of vaguely talking about a revamp or a an advancement of fifth edition, and some are talking about this is going to be absolutely backwards compatible. So is this going to be more like a 5.5 Dungeons and Dragons versus a sixth edition, and what people would see in it? And a lot of people were talking about what they would like to see in that particular game. But I thought we would talk a little bit broader. I mean, yes, we will talk about Dungeons and Dragons, but maybe some other genres as well as virtual tabletops and some aspects of of business. And let me start out by saying this. I'm going to talk about business first, and then we will narrow our focus down into like maybe some of our favorite games or some assets that we would love to see. So business side, I I would love to see a greater embrace of the vacillation between the corporate portion of tabletop role playing games and the individual celebrities that make up tabletop role playing games. So, in other words, we have we have okay, classic WotC, and we have names of a lot of companies: Green Ronin or Green Ronin, Atlas Games. Wow, we have D&D Beyond. Rickard mentions D&D Beyond. We have a number of VTTs, virtual tabletops, that have come to the market, and Owlbear Rodeo, Astral or Astra or something. Of course, we have the Fantasy Grounds and Roll 20 and whatnot. And but I would, for business wise, I would love to see, instead of the great names that have stepped away from the businesses, the corporate entities, TSR, Wizards of the Coast, Cobalt Press, and becoming their own individuals. Um, oh, somebody's go down the dark side, but yeah, Mufa says subscriptions everywhere and for everything. We are turning into a subscription society. Like, I'm going to buy a house in as a subscription. I'm going to subscribe by clothing. Yeah, I mean that's, which is a real thing too, right? But I think I would like to see, like, let's take Paizo for example. Paizo just agreed to recognize the unionization of their employees. We don't know what that's going to be. It's possible, to defend Paizo a bit, it's possible Paizo can't pay their employees the salaries they want. But I think like there might be a number of employees there who individually could leave and go off on their own and do their own thing, and be a personality unto themselves. But I would like some of these companies to embrace that. The Matt Colvilles, the Monty Cooks that go out on their own. I would like to see more of a synergy, so that as the game, as WotC, I joked about WotC being a third party publisher because of listening to Sly Flourish, he himself is like, WotC's like a third party publisher because we have so many people doing other things, and I would love that to go back and forth a bit. I would love to see them uh, uh, embrace the idea that individuals are brands unto themselves, and then just as they a lot of the companies use surveys and they talk to the community about what they want, that this could kind of flow back and forth and you'd get more of a I don't want to use the word union, I would say collaboration of sorts. And so that when we feel, for the people who want official products, they could get that, and it could be in development out in the wider in the wilderness of the tabletop community as people are doing their own things, and then it could kind of come together as gravity. Where I would love to see Watsy reach out and go, hey, there's Cobalt Press on one side, which they have hired to help them develop some things. Hey, there's individuals who are doing their own things, like Sly Flourish, for example, and they reach out to this individual and like, hey, we don't want you to subsume your name. We want you to still be you, but we want to work with this individual maybe to make settings like they did with Critical Role. But I would love them to do this for I would love to see this more common. Like maybe they do it in seasons, or like Eberron was a created by Keith Baker, who was an individual unto themselves. Um, but that's just business wise. Of course, we all wish people could get paid more. But I would also like to before we move off of my topic about business, and we'll go into like specifics, like I'll talk about subscription and VTTs. I think I'd also like to see um, a greater embrace of the other people in tabletop role playing games as part of the community. Like, there are a number of artists that people recognize, but I would love to see, I don't know, even from everything, not see, but everything from podcasts to YouTube channels and blogs and things of artists that do a lot of work in the tabletop role playing game industry. Kind of like Dyson Logos is very popular because of map making. I would love to see a huge community wrap around that, like whether it's like creating special dice or map making, and then have them embraced in a wider community as well. Whereas where these bigger companies like Watsy and the, I guess, the next top 10 or something go like a seasonal thing, like, hey, we're looking for people who make crazy dice or something like that for our games, and here are the dice makers, or here are the map makers, or here are the artists, and we can see their how they start their art from the sketch moment all the way up to the finished product, and we're going to put that in our book, and we get to see it from that inception. Because a lot of times, like with Kickstarters, they'll say, oh, well, we need money to pay artists, and we're like, well, which artists? What art are you talking about? I don't know who's that. Like, who makes the decision as to what kind of art goes into a book? Maybe even Watsy could say, hey, we've got 3 themes. You guys out there, tell us what our themes are. Are they going to be sketches and stuff? And lastly, maybe they could save more money using like black and white art. All right, let's get into virtual tabletops. Or no, not virtual tabletops. Let's get into digital assets. Um, there's a ton out there, and they all we are a picky picky lot of individuals that want what we want, right? And it seems like a lot of the digital assets, virtual tabletops and more, virtual tabletops, wikis, organizational programming and things, they everybody always seems to have that one thing that it doesn't have. Like, what was one example? Someone, I was listening to a podcast and someone was like, I wish they had a map maker that had hover overs, where you could type in, it was like a map mixed with a wiki hover, so you could type in the name of like I don't know, the Black River, and you put it on your map, and when you hovered over Black River, it would bring up the article that you wrote, so it would have a little blurb there, and then your players could move around a map, or they could move around a city, or hover over an NPC, and it would have the notes that maybe they wrote down about the NPC, like, we don't trust this person, and they have a black cat that looks at us strange, or something like that. Mike says, uh, embracing the new is already underway when it comes to miniatures. Yeah, independent 3D printers are all over Etsy. Yeah, see, and that's this is a thing where I think it's also the great equalizer, right? Because so many it is now air quotes affordable to buy a 3D printer, and what is it, Hero Forge or something has been putting out like um color 3D printed high quality, customized, already colored 3D printing miniatures and stuff. Oh, sweet, right? And again, they can work with other collaborators to say, "Hey, we're going to do a." I'm just making something off the top of my head. Like, we're in this season of the role playing industry, we're going to do the desert series or the sci-fi series or the piracy series, and I would love to see like a thematic theme run through our community. That would be nearly impossible because everybody's going to be working on their own thing, but that would be pretty cool where everyone's like, "Ooh, we can get these desert Persian miniatures and landscapes and things like that from our greatest, our best creators and whatnot." And then with the 3D printing, look how expensive it was, even upwards of like as soon as a year ago till now. It's crazy. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. Oh no, Rickard says, hot take. How important is the art really? I hate to tell you this, really important. Really important. It's something, hey, you got a product on its shelf, you got to catch someone's eye. It's the it's the um it's the how do you attract the attention of a suitor, right? In a relationship, well, you want to dress good and enhance your assets, coming and going. So all of us want to look good, and I think artwork has a lot to do with that. Even if the game sucks, but listen, there's a number of slaughtered darlings out there that are the greatest games ever that basically never saw the light of day just because of the artwork. And it's a shame, the art and the layout and all that kind of business. It's a shame that it has happened that way. um Hell, we an industry of layout artists in role playing games. I think we kind of need too, because it's the invisible art of laying out these things, and they're expensive. Layout artists are expensive to hire as well. Mike says art conversation, the emotion of a moment in time. It's really important. Art inspires storytelling, character creation, and so on. And I think un- it's unfortunate because I think there's some great artists out there that, strangely enough, may not understand the tabletop role playing game aesthetic. So sometimes the art might not match what you're looking at in a book because the artist is excellent, but they're not capturing the flavor of what it is. And it can be difficult to tell an artist what to do. And so if you don't have that, if you're a great artist, but you don't have the the collaborative mindset, you might draw a picture and it might look photorealistic, but it still might not have that flavor. And so I think that's even something else. Um, that's pretty important. Mufa talk, who brought up subscription society. It says, there are countless Patreons, etc., like more subscriptions. Yeah, providing digital assets for VTTs and 3D printing for tabletop. Yeah, yeah, there are. There's a lot of them, and th- it, it's the good and bad of it, right? Like the good of it is the great equalizer, where instead of having two, three companies that control the market, there are individuals who on their, in their garage or basement are like, hell, I could do that cheaper, and and punch out, I don't know, help out 50, 100 subscribers at a time that want particular things. But I would say that maybe m- maybe having too many of variable quality might be a thing. Like I'm wondering if there's a space for I'm wondering if there's a space for a trusted independent group to be able to corral all of the disparate things we have in the community under an umbrella of sorts, to be able to look at what's under the umbrella to decide for ourselves, oh, here are the things that have risen to the top. Much like here in the States, we have KBB, Kelly Blue Book, that is a book or company. It started out as a book that says, "Oh, here's the value of used cars, and here's what we think that they should cost." And so Kelly Blue Book has become like a, even though they're independent, it's like, "Oh, this is what is quality, and this is what isn't quality," and that's very difficult because it's like very subjective. But I would like to see something like that as well. I'm sure someone could come up with like a digital magazine, podcasty, streaming kind of thing, like, oh, here's the latest things from the top. Here's our top 10 of the week or whatever. Um, but it would be difficult because I'm sure everybody would go and like, that's not in my top 10. But I think it would be kind of cool to do that. Now, Rickard says, I think World Anvil has that for its map. Pretty sure other wiki plus map places have the same as well. I haven't seen it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but World Anvil. Oof, okay? I'm not gonna. This is literally not a complaint about World Anvil. It's a complaint about my own limited intelligence. World Anvil is so friggin' deep. It is crazy deep when it starts asking you questions about your game world, and you're just like, I don't know about fruits and veggies and the seasonal harvesting of like legumes and all this kind of business. It's pretty crazy. It goes into a lot of detail, and if you're a deep dive detailed, I'm going to answer every freaking question kind of person, go to World Anvil. It really, now of course World Anvil does help you, like, say, write a novel, so you can start to organize that as well. But man, yeah. Mike says a conversation should be convey. Art art conveys the emotion of a moment in time. Ah, yeah, yeah. Especially very active artwork, or artwork that leaves a question in your mind. I love artwork like that, when you see motion and you're not sure where it's going and where it came from, and you're answering it in your head unconsciously. I love that kind of stuff. But again, I don't. For me, artwork doesn't need to be like full color all the time. I love concept art and sketching, and I wish they included more of that. It would cheapen the price, allow artists to express themselves more, and it would cheapen the price of the product at the end too. Michael says, and to be honest, sites like Drive Through RPG are bringing new writers and artists to the forefront, and a lot. Well, if you think about it, like Amazon is kind of doing that too with Kindle and whatnot. Yeah, drive through is another, again, another great equalizer, because nearly anyone can put anything on drive through. The problem is nearly anyone can put anything on drive through, and of course they have their own mechanism for what rises to the top through sales. You can pay to have your products pushed forward, and if you're paying to have your product pushed forward on the title pages, maybe that proves that you are confident in what you're creating, or you're earning monies from the things you're creating, and you have other fans, and you've got like the 5 stars and the comments and things. So they have a mechanism to show that. There's a number of people who go through the DMs Guild, and on their, as content creators, they go, "Hey, here's like my top 5 things I've picked up on DMs Guild," and maybe drive through. I almost feel like drive through could kind of do their own promotion. I know that it doesn't benefit them to do this, but I could see them doing like a YouTube stream, streaming podcasty kind of thing, like drive through hires a bunch of people whose only job is to like read and play test a bunch of their stuff and go, "Hey, for this week, here's our top earners, or here's our rising stars," or something, and talk, and then interview some of those people that are creating that stuff. I would love to see something like that. Um, Rickard says, art is important, but I've never cared about the art in books. The art in books are almost always too tied to the book and not generic enough for me to jump off it. And it's funny because as I got older, just the more I love splatterpunk art. Splatterpunk, very watercolor or fractal or vague art. Who's a Runehammer is an expert at doing colored fractal art where you get a lot of silhouettes and things of that. There's a person like Ninja Taco or Taco Ninja on Deviant Art or anybody that does a ton of artwork like that. And I'm a real fan of the just give me the feeling and then my own imagination will let me fill in the blanks kind of artwork, which is kind of weird. That's its own hell. We could do just an episode just on that if I could. Well, legally, if I could punch up a lot of artwork, like going on to like Art Station and taking a look at that kind of thing. Michael brings up art wise the works of Keith Parkinson, Larry Elmore, who I'm getting an image already. Earl Otis, Mr. Melfeet, yeah, Earl Otis, Jeff D of the Thick Thighs, Bill Willingham, and such inspired a generation. And I think it's because, like, let's go with Earl Otis. I'm gonna pick on Earl Otis because Earl Otis doesn't need my attention, but you could love or hate the art, but it doesn't matter if it was used throughout to encompass what it is. Like Jeff D and Earl Otis did a ton of work for Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. That was the 80s sci-fi Dungeons and Dragons. Hey, there's a spaceship in a mountain, and you're going to adventure inside of the crashed spaceship. And the idiot inside of me was like, why is there the word egg spelled out in the spaceship? And of course it was like Gary Gygax, right? Um but it really embraced something where you see this artwork and you're like, yeah. Well, we talked about Planescape, right? And Dark Sun. You get the same artists or similar art styles, and you're like, every time you see it, you're just like, yeah, that's when I see um when I see a picture of the art from Planescape, it's super recognizable. And I wish we could go back to something like that. Uh, it's one of those things where you have to embrace it, despite the fact that other people are like, "Oh, that sucks." Michael says, and as far as future assets in gaming go, it wasn't really that long ago when the idea of an interactive video platform where the public can talk back to a host about gaming didn't exist. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's um Ricker's mentioning audio cutout. Is there raise your hand if you're having those issues? And also, I think there might be more people who are trying to interact on Facebook, and I don't think I'm getting the Facebook blend on the channel. So if people are able to communicate with me and they're like, "Hey, I really want to interact on Facebook," let me know, and I'll try behind the scenes at some point to figure out the issues because I was able to link it in, but I don't receive any live comments from there. Hmm. Yeah, and I'm looking. I 99% of the time my stream is really strong. Grable. Okay, here we go. Tony um Disturl Disturley. The artist for Planescape. Oh, shit. I'm gonna. Di Tezzarelli? Shit. Butcher the last name. Sorry about that, artist. But anyway, Tony, the artist for Planescape, defined the setting so good that I cannot think of it in any other form than in his style. I agree with you. Oh, I'm like right now when I say Planescape, I'm picturing that crazy line art that seems to bleed off the page and stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That art is excellent. Rickard's like, no, no, World Elva is way too much, way too fast. I agree with that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mufa's arms are folded. I see you. Mufa's like World Anvil, another subscription. Yeah, listen, we can get mad at the subscription s- service society that we're turning into, but that's where the money's at. I hear so many. Just a side note, I hear so many people complaining about like or not complaining, but they're like, oh, movies should be released on my favorite streaming service, and I'm going, you don't want that because sure, maybe you're paying $5 a month or $7 a month or something, but guaranteed A, the price goes up, and B, you're paying for it every single month. It's like in 10 months you're paying $70 for a movie you could have seen for $10 once, right? Like, and how many times are you going to see it? It's crazy. Yes, and everybody wants a subscription service because it's guaranteed money. It's the subscription services are based on the uh, exercise uh, exercise service industry. Like, you see January, you see all of the ads to go out and sign up to join some kind of exercise plan. And we have all the best equipment. Come on and sign up. You get 100 people sign up, and then at the end, only 20 people really go regularly. And the other 80 individuals don't go, but they're still paying for it. And that's where subscription services really shine. They want you to sign up for it. They don't want you to use it. They want you to set it and forget it. And that's where the money's at. I suppose you could you virtual tabletops would work with that. Like World Anvil's a subscription service, like World Anvil, Obsidian Portal, um, a ton of them are D&D Beyond and whatnot. I suppose you could do the same for I wonder if you could do that for releases for a role playing game, like the rules and such. Like, hey, I'm going to subscribe to your business that releases products regularly, and I don't have to buy the book separately. I just pay for the. I don't know how that. Well, somebody could make that work. I think they'd have to be really trusted, but I think so. Mufa says I use Scrivener, I believe that's how you pronounce it, for my campaign tracking and setting writing. Pay once, install on any PC. Yeah, yeah. Mufa's out there burning down, doing an anarchist burning down the subscription society. Yeah. I don't like it, but it's a thing. Rickers mentions I have given into the subscription world. I miss the pay once, use forever, but all the stuff I want to use is sadly subscriptions. Yeah. Oh, I think it just behooves the companies to feel like they are value added because, like today, how many times have we used the term cash grab, right? And the sad thing is if you're in the business of making money, everything is a cash grab, technically. But you want to be feel like you're value added. That if I give you money, you're giving me more. At least psychologically, I want to feel like I'm getting back more than I'm giving you. And not all the time. Netflix is kind of making me feel that way because there's a lot of bullshit on Netflix. Oh, Pelora, hey, what's up? Just caught up here. And the Genesis just announced they're not making any more books. Can't afford to pay for it when it's like 40 people carrying the funding. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a it- the the design studio. What is it? Six More Vodka and the Genesis. Yeah, it's difficult to do that, and they tried to break the page I'm sorry, they tried to break the Kickstarter Patreon formula by doing it in-house, and it's very difficult. I kind of feel like they need to go back to a Kickstarter Patreon formula, meaning like going to another host that's able to connect to other people who don't know about them rather than trying to do it in-house because it's very difficult to do it in-house. And I think they're very successful in the way they did it, but Wow, very difficult. Oh, Rickard says I don't like the old school art of TTRPGs at all. Ooh, that's a hot take, but I recognize the work done. Mm, there, Rickard. I'm gonna bad, bad RJ. Yeah, I'm not going to fault you on that. There's some artwork that I recognize, and I'm like, it warms my heart just because of the nostalgia. But I wouldn't put that artwork back in another book again. Wayne Bragg says Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. Yes, see, people of a certain age remember the '80s. uh, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks is was like the other white meat because everybody remembers Tomb of Horrors, but there were a number of adventure modules that came out. I've got it in the back room. I might bring it back out one. I've got. Let me start over. I own it. On the channel there is a. I did a review of it back when I was live streaming and whatnot. I was doing a lot more talking head kind of videos. I might bring it back out and do another deep dive into Expedition to Barrier Peaks. It had a not just the adventure module inside of it, and not just the cover you could open up that had the map of the spaceship, but it also had another booklet that was nothing but player handouts. It was just artwork that you would hand to your players, and some of the artwork was dual sided, so you would have the artwork you'd show when the players first entered the room, and then when the surprise came out, you'd have the same art done with the surprise, so you could flip it over and stuff. It was pretty good. Really, really fun. Mufa says book printing is getting stupidly expensive. I expect someday a major publisher to release something big in digital format only. Yes, the problem with expensive books is us. So if I write a novel, all I need to do is hire an artist once to do the cover, and then I need to hire a layout artist that has to do minimal layout for my book, and I'm done as a novelist. But for us, we need layout artists who are literal artists because we have to get art for our book. I hear you, Rickard, but we do need art for the book minimally. We have to get those art assets. We have to have somebody lay the art out in the book, more like magazine laying out rather than novel laying out, because how big of the art do you want? What kind of font is it? Hey, when I lay out this information, is it going to bleed over to a third page? Do we want two-page spreads so everyone gets the information? How many times have we complained about a book being written and it's disorganized, or you can't read the font, or they tried to do a watermark and the watermark smudges the red lettering they thought looked really cool on a computer screen, but you can't read it because of the print quality and all. There are more people with their hands out, rightly so, who want to get paid to make a role-playing game book, and that's why the price keeps reaching 60, 70, 80 bucks and more. Mufa's got the anarchist flag, like, yeah, also you don't subscribe to a book you own. That's true. I wonder if someone could change that though. Buy a book, get a code. You're now, buy a book, inside there's an insert to get a subscription to something that's related to the book or whatever. I don't know. I don't know. Mm-mm-mm. Guys talking to each other. Mufa continues and says, I skip a lot of shows I want to see because they are on some other streaming service I don't have. I have two running subs, Disney and Netflix. Yeah, I don't have what, like, here in the States we've got Paramount Plus, Peacock, uh, Tubi is coming up now. Vudu is still around. Hulu. It's like, yeah, everybody's trying to back in their own corner because subscription services guarantee money, right? For 50 bucks, I'm sorry, for $5 a month, that's six $60 at the end of the year that you've earned consistently. And having consistent revenue, there's nothing better than having consistent revenue. I think Netflix makes over $1 billion a month from subscriptions. Wayne Barrett says Disney's evil. All right, we're going to just stop right there. All right, we're done. Thank you very much for being here. No, I'm just joking. I just have one. I paid. I just have one. I pay $10 for Amazon. That if they break Lord of the Rings, I'm going to quit that. Yeah, I have Amazon too. I can't wait. They're spending a lot of money on this series. I hope it translates on screen. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I have Amazon because of the delivery service. The video is a side effect to that because they love to nickel and dime you as well. It's crazy. Rickard says, to be fair, okay, let's see if you are. Sometimes subscriptions make sense. I think it would take me 6 to 7 years of subscriptions to get up to the one-time price of Photoshop, for instance. Right, right, and that's where the value added comes in. Like, and I'm wondering if could okay, um many individuals sign up for like $1 to $5 Patreons to support their creators in what they are creating. And I wonder if a place like Six More Vodka and Degenesis could get away with a very extremely low subscription service. Hey, help fund us so that we can continue to make the things you may not want what we're creating today, but in general, you love what they're creating as a whole. And I've seen people complain about actual businesses using Kickstarter and Patreon and crowdfunding and such, but I kind of think that the blending of those two, I kind of feel like that might go away. And that's where I was going back to the beginning. What I was thinking of was that I wonder, imagine, okay, here's an example. Watsy, huge company, Hasbro. We know that Hasbro, their owners, have a lot of money. Watsy's budget may not. But could you imagine them going, okay, everybody who wants Mystera and Dark Sun and Planescape and stuff, we're going to go back to those creators. Those creators are going to go out and get their own collaborators, and you, the public, are going to fund the thing that you want to see next. Like I'm thinking of some synergistic thing like that. With Keith Baker is like, oh, you want to see Eberron 3.0? Well, I'm the original creator, and they're coming to me. I'm going to find five other people that are going to help me write the next. It's been 1,000 years and Eberron has changed, and I'm going to redo this thing and then get it funded through them to make it official. Like, I don't know how that would work, and I know it would rub people the wrong way, but I'm looking future. Mufa says, I mainly only got the Disney sub for Mandalorian and Bad Batch. Yeah, me too. Me too. It was Mandalorian for me. Mr. Fa, or Mr. or Miss Prony Fa says, I use GIMP instead of Photoshop and LibreOffice instead of Office 365. Yeah, subscriptions. I wonder what that would look like in a fantasy realm. That'd be a good plot. Mike says, Kickstarter is another key in future gaming. Um, Publicly funding a project like a new game or setting is relatively new. Yeah, yeah, and I the 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 issue with Kickstarter for us is psychological because we know Kickstarter is there for people who have no money. Hey, I want to make, what was it, potato salad, and I need $10 to make potato salad. I think that guy earned like 50 grand or something. But anyway, but it was meant for artists who don't have backing to do it, and bigger companies have greater funds to do a thing. I don't. I think in my head canon, it's not about it's not about whether the company has the money to do it. Now Kickstarter is being used to say, we don't know how many people are interested in this thing. And if there's an overwhelming interest in a thing, they know they can continue that thing, as opposed to gambling your money away on a print run of 5,000 books, but you only have 200 people that want them, right? That's how I look at Kickstarter. Like, well, how many people really are interested in this thing? And then if there's an overwhelming need, yay. If not, they go, well, we might need to go back to the drawing board. Rickard says, I have tried, but I just can't. The frustration is real when I'm forced to use Leaper. Mm-mm-mm. Mike brings up White Plume Mountain, Castle Amber, Isle of Dread, Hidden Shrine of T- uh Tomoshikon. I don't remember how to pronounce it. Queen of the Demon Web. Yeah, lots of epic titles. I don't have all of them. I actually thought about trying to collect them all and then just doing like little side reviews, little 5-10 minute reviews of like sneak peeks inside. Like here's the hidden thing. Here's why somebody wanted this thing. Like for example, in Queen of the Demon Web pits, it's either Queen of the Demon. Well, it's a combination of the two. Queen of the Demon Web pits and the one about Baba Yaga's hut has a has high tech devices in it. Like Loth literally has a mechanized spider she lives in, and then in the Baba Yaga adventure, there's a storeroom of things she's gotten through going through dimensional portals, and she has like a M1 Abrams tank sitting in her hut or something. It's crazy. Uh, you guys talking about the different services you subscribe to. Mike brings up getting back to Questing Beast, which is another. Sorry, side note. Questing Beast created Knave. Questing Beast, individual content creator. If you have any interest in OSR, you've got to check out Questing Beast. He does a really great rundown and supports the entire OSR community. And he's created Knave on his own, which has become an OSR standard unto itself, right? And here's this guy on his own, but then people look to him for some validation as to which types of OSR content there is. Plus, he does a lot of zine reviews and things like that. But anyway, Mike says, getting back to Questing Beast, many of the titles he reviews are physically smaller, single, or two color max, point form style, simplified art, all price cutting measures. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, here's a cheap way to do it. You know, we know that art is expensive, but you can, much like a royalty, much like royalty free uh, intellectual properties like Frankenstein and Dracula and a number of those properties, novelistic literature properties that you could take and make anything you want out of it. There's also art that is old art. And if you, let's say you're creating something from like, oh, I want to do an RPG based in 1865, you can actually find like art drawn from 1865 to put into your product. And that's what the OSR has been doing. They've been finding like someone will take like news articles and old what's it called, where you etch something on wood and then you rub ink over it and press it down. My brain's farting, but you get the point, right? Michael's bringing up the point about they do a smaller book. So I'm trying to give an example of something. Instead of 8.5 by 11, you get a smaller format book, so it's a little more handheld. It's kind of it's become more of a what people call a zine style. So and it also, since you shrink the book down, instead of your RPG being 10 pages, you shrink it down and it turns into like 25 pages, and it feels like you're getting more. And then of course you can do like full page art by taking free assets and playing around with it and stuff like that. I love the style. Ink service, yep. Rickard says, yeah, Kickstarter and the like is a safe way to try stuff. If people back it, it was a good idea. If they don't, you didn't have to spend the money on it before finding out. Exactly. And I think I understand why no one wants to back something from WotC if they tried to do a Kickstarter. I get it. Like, I wouldn't argue with you, but I hate to tell you this, they might have to do that, right? WotC, Paizo, these guys, they're hemorrhaging money. They might have to turn into like a 12-person group that's spread over the country, over the world, and they have to kickstart. So it's crazy, but they might have to. I don't know how successful they'll be. Probably not. I mean, Six More Vodka. Oh my god, the quality. I wish I could afford their books. And maybe now that you said Pelora mentioned that they're not printing their books anymore. Not printing them. They're not making any more books because they can't afford to do it. Since they've given a lot of that stuff away for free. I don't know. Yeah, I might make the investment now that I'm thinking about it. Michael says if the quality of the con is there, you don't need Sharpie full color watercolor sessions from Watsy. I agree. I agree. And maybe I hate to say this, maybe we need to be trained. I, I, I maybe that's a bad thing to say. And good thing we have a lot of full color, well laid out art. I mean, RPG products, but maybe we need to go back to a simpler time. Line art, black and white art, um, uh, digitized photos. You could put like watercolor and charcoal filters over top of actual photographs and things like that. I mean, hell, you could take miniatures, and if you do it right, you couldn't tell that you could modify painted miniatures as art for your book, and people wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Like, oh, there's warriors fighting a dragon. It's like, no, someone put it on a table, photographed it, put a bunch of filters, and you're done, right? I mean, I, maybe hell, maybe books need to be filled with more art related to the the objects we use for the game in general, like the dice and the miniatures and things like that. And also maybe it sells some of those products. Mufa says, just never back more into a crowdfunded project than you were willing to lose. Yeah, yeah. Lots of people made mistakes about kickstarting things and going like, oops, I actually have to make this product now? Like, yeah, you got a little high on your own product. Sniff. You know what I mean? Pelora says, imagine a Kickstarter for a new Magic the Gathering set. Ooh. For for those who don't know, Magic the Gathering is a money machine. Could you imagine them asking people for money? Like, we don't know if anyone's going to buy this. And the Magic the Gathering people, I mean, the players are just like, they'd be getting cramps in their middle fingers from holding their middle fingers up too long. That's how much of an fu it would be. But yeah. And like, listen, I do agree. If you're going to be in that business and you're going to make money in that business, you kind of have to accept the losses. But yeah, the future of that kind of thing, I think. Now, here's another thing as well. Since so many books are going to be like what was brought up earlier, I didn't forget the comment was we're going to have RPG products put out that never become physical. They'll be completely digital. And I think one strange way that would be good. I know it's frustrating to get a digital book and then they keep sending you digital errata to have to keep re-downloading the book. Like, oh, there's a fifth installment. Change another thing. Now I got to download the fifth one, and my download is different than your download. But I think there's a way nowadays. How cool would it be? Much like Six More Vodka and DeGenesis did it, I would love to see an RPG company do digital books and other products, virtual tabletop or something, in which, sure, this could be a subscription service, but they're constantly updating what it is. And you could do a meta story involved in it. Like, I purchased my book 3 years ago. The story has advanced 3 years into the future. So now the information in it, I don't know, Dr. Phineas Jorn has aged 3 years. And so the doctor used to have a small practice, but now in the book, the doctor has like created a franchise or something and is being investigated by like some kind of government financial service. So, like, that would be kind of a weird, strange living idea. Now it'd be hard to bring people in the middle of it, but I think a company could get away with that. It'd make it kind of fun. Mufa says if they would crowdfund a Forgotten Realms or Planescape box set, I would be all over that. I miss the box sets. Now that would be cool to reprint, update, or something like that. Like, because the fluff doesn't change. Like, let's go Planescape, right? Um, I actually have physical copies of. I've actually most recently received print copies of the scans of the old Planescape books, if that makes sense. But I could see a company rem- separate the fluff out. Don't just scan it. I mean, literally retype the whole thing in. That's cumbersome, but you only need to do it once. So you have that digital part, and then the rule set you could update for each generation. I, to keep it more. Oh, you said swashes. Yeah, I get. Okay. Um, sorry about that. Because it's difficult for me to get into your minds because all of you have different mindsets and stuff. Pelora says in video games you have the early access model, which is basically paying to test a game. Gives the company money early in a project and a way to get feedback. Not sure that applies to tabletop. I think it does. I've seen that. I've seen that on drive through where, hey, we haven't like here's 12 pages of our game for $2 or something, and give us feedback. We're going to have the $40 full color, full laid out book later on. I've seen that in drive through. Some people don't like that because they feel like why do I pay you to make me a playtester for your game? I've seen that argument. But if you're a fan of what they're creating, I don't see a problem with it. I think guaranteed if Keith Baker says, we're going to do Eberron, I'm going to call Eberron Rebirth, and it takes place 1500 years in the future and the world's completely changed, I guarantee you people were just like, I'll pay for an early promo for that and play test it. Yeah, I think so. If his name was attached, I would say so. Even if it was with Watsy, I think it would. I think it could get away with it. Uh, Especially the more open they are. I think we're in a time now where holding too much information to the chest is a bad thing. I think bruises and ingrown hairs and facial splotches and scratching your rear end and stuff. I think those the things we don't normally want to see. I think in our role playing community, I think that's an asset for us to see the growing pains of a project coming together, like putting out a test thing of something and going, you know what, we scrapped it because it sucks. The community says it sucks. We agree it sucks. Let's get rid of it. And I think people respect that. They might not like it in the beginning and go, like, why did they change the ranger and the new ranger sucks as much as the old one? But I think overall, letting the greater community take a look at the bad, the things the dust bunnies in the corner, the mold growing on the ceiling or something like that before it gets fixed. I think we are in a time where that's cool. Um, Anyway, getting back to you guys to end the show. Mufa says magic source subscriptions or crowdfunding for a new deity or become a Patreon at the divine tier and get access to my OnlyFans and two unique spells. Oh shit. That's RPG OnlyFans. Wow. Wow. Creators like, I'll do anything for money just to get my project started. And I'm like, sure thing. Let me get my RPG books and some lotion, an absorbent towelette. Okay, I'm ready. Oh shit. Ricker says one final thing about art. Archives of Nethys. Okay. D20 uh, D20 Pathfinder SRD, D&D Beyond, etc. How much do you actually see the art when you use these places? And how much is just text, not even super formatted? You are absolutely correct on that. Other than like D&D Beyond, other than the font and being synergistic with how things look in D&D, we don't I don't bother. The artwork doesn't isn't very important. So I agree with you. Listen, I'm not claiming that you are wrong. I'm saying that there's an emotional context to it uh that people feel like they're not getting the value. And it's unfortunate because some people just like the rapper. And if the rapper doesn't look good, it's why the it's why when people shop on Rodeo Drive, they have on their arm those bags with the expensive logos on the outside because they purchased something. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Some people want it because they feel like they deserve to have it because of the expense. Which you could say, well, why don't like I remember there was a time when art used to be separated from books. You'd buy the book, and then they have a book of art that you could buy on its own. Like, here's a book of art for dragons. Here's a book about dragons. It just has the text in it. Um, I don't know. Maybe something like that could be done. Rickard says, "What if WotC did a Kickstarter for something way more niche? Okay, something they 100% wouldn't publish in the mainline stuff. See, I think they could get away with that, especially if they specifically delineate one from the other. And that's where I feel like people who work for WotC for whatever WotC, Cobalt Press, Green Ronin, a lot of them, I feel like some of the individuals that work there, it would behoove them to say, "Hey, listen, you are a good writer for us, but there's no way we're going to make this niche product, you know. But if you we support you in going to the public to say, I work for Cobalt Press. I'd like to do this, I don't know, steam train fantasy steam train setting where everyone it's a combination of like I don't know, Snowpiercer and steampunk or something, and a- a- and have them kickstart this thing where there's no way the company's going to go could afford to do it. We want to see how much interest there is. I think they could get away with that, especially if the individual is a brand we recognize. I think, you know, um, people have a love hate relationship with Jeremy Crawford, but imagine Jeremy Crawford on his own is like, hey, I've got this great idea for a furries setting that WotC will never make, and the fans of me, would you be interested in something like that? And then WotC goes, hey, yes, we support this individual doing this thing, and we will make it official if it's successful. Um, okay, Mike says, and I'm not sure what this reference is. Says Ben QB is a proponent of organization and page layout. You can make things easier to understand while making them cheaper and better organized. Save space, money, and time. The OSR leads the way. Now, I agree with you on that. Maybe like again, the shiny and new sometimes blinds us to the realities. Like I, I'll give you, I'm going to give you some personal information that my wife and I we have two long-term bills. I got a mortgage that's probably going to be paid off in 3 years, and a car note that's going to be done in the same amount of time. Because I'm looking at retirement. I literally am going to retire in 6 years, and I want no bills. You can get rich. There's two ways to get rich. You can get rich moving up. Hey, I make more money. I'm earning, and you can get rich by lowering your bills, right? And like I think someone said Paizo was putting out upwards of 40 products a year. And it's like, you can't sustain that, Maybe you should cut that down. And I agree with you, Mike. Like black and white art, better layout. Hell, you could, and this is what I mean about the future of the RPG community, like a Dyson Logos who makes maps. Go to these and go to a layout artist that's like, hey, listen, here's 30 examples of how I lay something out, and the greater community like us can point these individuals to WotC and go, don't spend money like that. Here's a great artist. Hire this artist, and having those companies be open enough to go, this we don't know who this person is, but apparently everyone else loves them. I'm using Dyson Logos has been around for a while, but I'm using him as an example. Like we need a map maker. Here's a person that makes a map. The community pointed them to this individual. Let's hire this individual to put this stuff in our product. And that's what I mean about the future. I would love many of these companies to open themselves up more. I'm not saying to be completely controlled by the community, but if the community is like, hey, Brandon Sanderson's books are great. How about a role playing setting based on his books? Oh, and then we become the mediator between the two, as an example, right? That's what I mean. Uh, Mike Gould says, given current supply chain issues, digital assets may be the inevitable future. Yeah, and going back to Mofa's subscription service thing, yeah, that may be. Um, I can't imagine how long it would take. What was the book? Um, Tales from the Loop, the kids game, the kids on bikes kind of game, where that book, the layout, the art is awesome. I can't imagine how long it would take and how expensive it would be today with supply issues. But if I could get it digitally, why not? Why not? Hell, you could theoretically you could get a digital book with extremely simple black and white art from the artist who hasn't completed the art, and then download the finished pieces of that artist as to get it back into the book. I mean, technically you could do that. Someone could say, here, look, here's my concept art, throw it in the book. Me as an artist, I'll update the art in the book over the weeks, months, years, or something like that. That would be very strange to open up a file or open up a website and the art keeps getting better and changing and like getting color and there's more lines in it and stuff like that. I think that'd be kind of cool to see something like that as well. Mufa says, I bought a bunch of books from Free League. Okay, yeah. Free League makes Symbaroum. I thank you for bringing up another company. Symbaroum, Mutant Year Zero, Forbidden Lands, at Origins, and they gave me the PDFs for free. Best of both worlds. I think that might be a new thing as well, like giving away uh, coming up with quick start rules where literally it's here's the rules of the game, no fluff, no art, no cool layout. It's just page text. It's all text document, 62 pages of text document instead of 86 pages complete with super fonts and things like that. Maybe that might be the new norm. Almost Google Doc sharing. Like, hey, you want to play our Mutant Year Zero or Forbidden Lands? Guess what? Here's the book for $12 instead of $52, all text. And here's the art for the book with maps and things like that, separate, no text at all, or very little text. But here's the artwork, and you can get it downloaded or something. Maybe fractal RPGs. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Mike says art equals marketing. Maybe a new synergistic way to do art and marketing. That might be something new as well. I don't know. I could see it. Ricker says, okay. One last thing on art. All right, let's have a fight here. I would pay good money for an art pack of just like mug shots, full frame pictures that I can use for NPCs, PCs, full stop. No writing, just art pack. See, that's where I'm thinking. Like, especially if especially if it's something especially a setting that's difficult to describe to people and the artwork is extremely descriptive, and cyberpunk has an aesthetic to it, right? It's neon, it's moist streets with reflected neon for some reason. It's vague people walking in the background with various pieces of like technology and wearing like stylish clothing mixed with like automatic weapons and swords and stuff, right? And cyberpunk has an aesthetic and fantasy has an aesthetic, and not just fantasy but fantasy cultural aesthetics. There's something different, tribal versus city state versus like I'm just I got to name different cultures like Japanese versus India, versus Japan versus you know South America versus a Viking culture. And if you want that art, uh, not only could the art be descriptive, like you said, NPC packs, map packs, um, landscape packs. Hey, you're traveling across the countryside. Click, here's a landscape of what you see when you crest the thing. And the people go, oh, that's what they mean by the castle in the valley. I wasn't thinking of that. Or, oh, that's what the Underdark looks like, you know? Oh, Mike's Ben is questing beast. Yeah, I was like, quarterback? Hmm. Yeah, I'm with you there, Rickard. Like a good y- y- going back to the faded fractal artwork style, splatterpunk style. I think that would even work with that as well, where you could have an NPC that's not photorealistic, that is faded or watercolored enough that it could you could imagine the NPC that my imagination of the NPC can be radically different than your imagination of the NPC because the artwork has shifted around quite a bit. Um, here we go. Rickard says, out of print now available. Okay. Pinterest, yeah. I go ArtStation and DeviantArt, and there's a third one that used to be really big. Elf something. I was about to say ElfQuest. Elfwood used to be really big. I don't know if it still is. I haven't been there in a while. Michael says there are a ton of hungry artists out there with massive talent willing to work for not so much. Perhaps the secret is us trying new artists. And also, why not shop an artist? Here's my thing. Artists create art to promote what they do. Why don't we just buy the art that they've already created instead of hiring them for new art as well? That's another way to cheapen something. Um, like a person goes, "Hey, I did a bunch of art for that steam train, coal punk, uh, gold rush RPG," and someone's like, "Well, I don't think that exactly fits, but I like the aesthetic. Hey, can I pay for some of this art?" And our art, I mean, now that might mean sharing art amongst different platforms, like like buying a Dyson Logos map, but knowing that map might be used somewhere else. But I don't think there would be a problem with that. I know some people might go, because here's what would happen. Someone would go, fold arm pout, I saw that map before. And then after a while, five other people go, cool, I saw that map before, right? So there's a little bit of that. Eighth Nerd, what's going on? I think a couple of companies do what Free League does with their PDFs. Pretty certain Modifius does that as well. Oh, Modifius is another company that reaches out to individuals to promote their stuff. And I don't know. I think the division between content creator like me and Watsy like them, I think is going to blend. And when I say me, I mean talking about, like, again, the Monty Cooks, the Matt Colvilles, the Keith Bakers and such. I think that blend. I wish the companies would open themselves up to having that blend, to say these people work for us, but they're also their own individuals, and using them as a brand, and the people who brand themselves willing to work with the companies that they are attached to. Paizo, I think, could do that. If they can't afford to pay their employees, then allow their employees to earn money in other ways, maybe promoting your own products, and thereby getting that back on them. If there's a great writer at Paizo who's like, dude, I can't, this doesn't fit into what we're doing now, but I really want to do this. I don't know. What hasn't Pathfinder done? Okay, they're like, I want to do a Wild West setting using Pathfinder, and I know you guys will never make it, but I have my own following on Twitch and YouTube, and I do a podcast, and I'd like to create. And Paizo goes, dude, go for it. I want to see how well it does. Oh, it's gaining a lot of attention. Great, bring them back here, and we will help you find people that do art and layout and stuff. I wish they would embrace that. Mike says Cyberpunk 2020 was all black and white art assets internally. Yep, as was BattleTech. Line art can be evocative. It absolutely can, because it's in. Instead of getting mad at the limitation, embrace the limitation. Because a lot of times, what line art is, have you imagined? You ever see street vendor people who, or people who make money doing artwork on the street, and sometimes the art looks like someone who saw something and decided to draw it, sketch it out on like a notepad or something. And that in and of itself is the embrace of the, oh, like, I'll go back. I'm gonna bring up FASA. FASA did the Star Wars D6 system, and Strangely enough, the people who got the license to do Star Wars as a role playing game asked for the concept art for Star Wars. And them not knowing at the time how important that was, they were just like, "Here's what we're not going to use this concept art. Here, throw it in the book." And so when you go back to the original D6 FASA, it's filled with like starships you've never seen before, assassin droids you've never seen before, and you're just like, this is sweet. Why wasn't this in a movie? And of course, it wasn't in the movie because it was a Carillion freighter and it went through 16 different passes before they settled on a Millennium Falcon. But in the game, they were like, oh no, this is just another starship, and it was all line art, drawn, sketched, and things like that. And it did come across as like, oh, it was a, I don't know, it was Luke Skywalker sitting on a stone looking out on the horizon and sketching what he saw. It came across that way, and I was like, that's sweet. And it was all black and white art too. And it was art that was already done, that was already paid for. Like here, Rickard's saying, yeah, I'm cultivating a list of artists I would love to work with for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see. Mike says the tattoo art style I think you're talking about is called trash polka. It's a splatterpunk style. Yes. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I didn't know what it was like. Afner depresses me. Elfwood sadly was shut down 5 years ago. Hmm. Maybe I haven't been there in a while. Yeah, yeah, but I loved Elfwood during its heyday. I really did. It was hit or miss, but like anything, whatever, it's hit or miss. Um, AF, goes on to say, Free League have been really good at collaborating with artists. The artists who worked on Mutant and I'm going to mispronounce it. It's not Vason. It's whatever. Anyway, and Tales from the Loop all have their own things going on outside of Free League. Exactly, and they cross promote. They also allowed the writer for the Alien RPG promote his RPG that's not being published by Free League. Exactly, exactly. The thing is, it's the high tide idea, right? You tell the person you're collaborating with, and go, listen, I'm not shackling you. And the reason is because when that artist or writer or whoever goes off and does their own thing, to be mercenary about it, they are promoting what you're doing for free, if that makes sense, right? If Keith Baker's existence keeps Eberron viable because he's around, if you understand what I'm saying, right? Keith Baker himself, it just just being around in the community keeps attention on Eberron because I know he gets questions about it all the time. It would behoove Watsy to reach out to him and say, "Hey, listen, we know we purchased this IP from you a long time ago, and back I know hard feelings, blah blah. Let's start over, right? We want you to come back and collaborate with us again, and you can do your own thing, you at the same time, right? And in a way, he is doing it, but that's my point. Is like, why do we have to have hard lines any longer? I don't. I think it's crazy. Mike Gould says, let's consider the black and white high contrast artwork of Frank Miller's Sin City. Yep, or Eastman's original run of pre idyllic pizza bullshit. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, evocative. Yeah, people don't realize the original black and white Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was lethal and bloody. Oh man, I miss that era. I miss the pre cowabunga pizza van driving. Oh, I miss that era so much. Yeah, yeah, I gotta work today. Um, yeah, I gotta work. All right, guys, listen. Thank you very much for being part of the show to have us talk out loud and all this kind of bullshit. Um, I thought we were going to do something else, but and maybe get into nitty gritty of rules and things like that. I tried something a little bit different today because I removed the chat off the side because I can, like, if I click the button, that's where the chat shows up on the on the to the side of the page. But I thought I'd try something a little bit different just so that people could see the comments and things like that. But guys, thank you so much for just being part of the show. We were talking about the industry this week. 2 weeks from now, not next week, but the week after, is going to be a big push because it'll be the last week of the level up advanced 5th edition from N World. So just be prepared that I will be promoting it all week. Sorry. I will be communicating. We open and all that kind of stuff. We'll be taking sneak peeks, but that will be the thing. So if you need to step out or you're not really interested in that kind of thing, don't even feel guilty about that. Whatever. But just to let you know. Oh, just a heads up. Twitch is. See, I didn't know that. I didn't change it. I might probably have to go back and change it. Thank you very much for letting me know. I don't. My Restream collects it all, so I'm not looking at it individually. So I'll make sure I change that because I didn't change it at all. And Mufa takes us out with Ride Eternal, Shiny, and Subscribed. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Everybody have a great weekend. I will see thee later. Peace.